Lemons to lemonade, building success out of loss. Loss is just a part of life, including in the life cycle of an open source project, whether that's experienced as loss of a maintainer, loss of a key supporter, loss of reputation, or even just loss of that sense of passion for the mission. Any long-lived project will eventually hit this wall and have to figure out how to rebound from the setback. This talk delves into how a decade-old open source project rebounded from major loss and emerged with a vibrant new growth curve and a healthier than ever community. I'll also be sharing lessons learned from what we didn't do. I want to admit upfront that, yeah, it can be daunting to confront these challenges in the midst of a crisis, but know this, you truly can bring new life to a project that suffered setbacks. Hi, I'm Carina C. Zona. I'm the head of developer relations for Pants Build open source project, a role that I've been in since early 2021. In April of 2020, Pants was like a case study in major loss. The company where the project had originated decided to move on to something else, and that decision meant the project lost its lead sponsor, its driving use case, several of the maintainers who were the company's employees who were paid to work on it full time, as well as a key source of talks and tutorials. So altogether, if not handled carefully, this is the kind of pivotal moment where a project can potentially just fall apart. But I want to show you that's not what happened here. My mission when I arrived was clear: generate fresh excitement and a vibrant new growth curve. So how do you do that? First, start by stabilizing internally, because loss is destabilizing. It triggers grief responses that impact people as individuals and as community members, and it impacts their relationship with the project. It's important to be aware that grief is likely so that you can protect the project from becoming driven by unprocessed emotions that turn eventually into potential risk avoidance. Grief can be present during any time of change. Don't underestimate what it is, and don't underestimate either how complex it is, because grief isn't one emotion. Grief is the container that holds all of the emotions felt as a result of loss. And those can be really kind of confounding. And most of all, they can be confusing for people who are used to identifying grief as simply sadness. When it's not that clear cut, they may not even identify it as grief. And that can lead to it not being dealt with. So the first thing you need to do is crisis communication, and this is really important. Communicate to the public. If the loss, by the way, has had any changes in leadership as a result, make sure that the new leadership is who's out front setting the agenda and the tone. You don't want to let messaging be defined by those who are less than fully invested in the future of the project. Start by correcting misinformation, alleviate fears, bring focus onto continuity, for instance, highlighting what remains stable, functional, committed, and communicate a clear and accurate new direction. Refer them to resources for further information as well. You'll also need to gather feedback from affected people and articulate a recovery plan, and then keep folks updated on how those efforts are going. This is a great time to talk about changes that are worth being energized by. For instance, consider that change also can be a positive, energizing, catalyzing, empowering, liberating, emboldening situation. So, what do you have going on that can be really changed to get excited about? Finally, make sure you do a retro. Talk about the things that could be done better and how this happened in the first place so that you can anticipate better. Next step, shore up DevRel fundamentals. This is really important. If the foundation isn't strong as you move forward, you're going to have problems. So what do I mean by that? All right, first of all, DevRel is developer relations. The relationships need to be strong. Analytics, if you don't know how to count which direction you're headed in, are the numbers going up? Are they going down? Who's in your community? What kinds of industries are they in? What are their priorities and concerns? All of those things are countable, and you need to be able to analyze them. So make sure you've got a process for doing so. Doing as much personal outreach as possible, more than usual. This is the time to make sure that people really feel seen, heard, that they have someone that they can reach out to as well. This is the time to really make sure that people feel like they have a connection that's personal. And this is also the time to shut up and listen. You've done the crisis communication, you've done the outbound communication. Now it's time for inbound, really hearing what it is that they have to say. What are their concerns? What are they worried about? What are they really proud and excited about? Why are they sticking around? Is there any concern that they're dealing with back at their own organization? Are they having to field questions that they can't answer? Whatever they've got that's motivating for them, this is a great time to empower them to move forward with it. If there's a leadership vacuum of any kind, this is an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, go for it. Take the lead. Delegate as much as possible. If you've lost key personnel, this is the time to let people know you have the power to step up. We will support you in this. Um, Next, you need to do a deep inventory of the community. Know who's in the community, why they're there, what's important to them. And you want to do this in order that you can do a SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT analysis is a really standard business analytic. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and it's a simple square matrix. I'm not going to do an elaborate look at what the SWOT analysis was in 2001 for pants, just because we don't have time in this talk. But I do want to point out just a few key things. Notice, first of all, that there are a lot of strengths here, and they're important ones. They're really ones that can help drive you forward, including strong governance foundations. The weaknesses seem as though they're almost as numerous, but actually most of them are just a list of different kinds of content that we're missing. Whereas one that was really important is that there was, for a long time, a lack of any DevRel personnel, and so therefore a lack of focused DevRel efforts. And that was much more significant as a weakness that needed to be corrected. Whereas the content stuff, that's easy to solve. Opportunities, it seems like those are a small list, but they were really important opportunities that actually became really pivotal to the kind of change that we were able to affect. The threats, meanwhile, what I want you to notice about that is that the most significant threat was FUD, fear, uncertainty, and disinformation. And FUD arose due not to the loss itself, but to an underestimated weakness, that lack of DevRel for nearly a year. So crisis communications only started in earnest after misapprehensions had spread widely, a challenge that could have been sidestepped by undertaking crisis communication right away. And that's why I emphasize that to you, the importance of that, so that you don't end up having a bigger problem to solve than you started with. Once you've done that SWOT analysis of the community, use that to formulate new goals that fit new realities. So for example, one of the new realities for Pants was that the new lead sponsor was a seed stage company founded by the co-creators of Pants, who had continuously been involved as maintainers throughout the life of the project and continued to do so to this day. So the strategy had to prioritize which of many possible paths to pursue, because we simply would not have the same kind of resources to pursue everything. We would have to make some strategic, hard choices, and we did. So, and I've highlighted here the things that we chose to focus most energy on, and articulated as a whole. The easiest way to think about those new goals is they can be expressed like this. Excel at being the modern build system that's highly adaptable to a wide range of use cases, not allowing any one company's priorities to dominate as if all organizations share identical agenda and resources. Encourage and support users in becoming advocates for their own perspectives and needs. Stand out for being welcoming and responsive as an open source community, demonstrating to people that their power here to quickly have real impact via their feedback, their pull requests, their ideas, their voice. Cultivate people who make modest contributions of any kind and facilitate their development into open source maintainers. And that's it. It worked. By homing in on strengths and opportunities, whittling away an emergent threat, and formulating fresh goals that fit our more modest resources, we turned lemons into lemonade and transformed a rough period of loss into one of the project's now defining strengths. With introspection, deep listening, solid crisis communication, and the backing of your community, your project can come back stronger than ever, too. Thank you. Questions?